The meeting room filled with conversation while I checked my phone, watching the screen illuminate with Tyler's incoming call. Stepping into the corridor, I anticipated our typical casual conversation about my business trip and return date. However, Tyler's voice sounded distant and arrogant when he delivered his bombshell. He was filing for divorce, speaking with an almost victorious attitude. He informed me he'd already put our home on the market, leaving me to sort out my living arrangements. He told me to savor that reality. Momentarily, I found myself unable to draw breath. His boldness and complete absence of guilt seemed almost comical. My grip on the phone intensified as I processed his statement. "You put the apartment up for sale?" I questioned, maintaining my composure. "Absolutely," he responded with harsh laughter. "Nicole and I require the funds to establish our new household. She merits something better than such a cramped space anyway." Nicole. That name pierced me, though I'd harbored suspicions for months about another woman. Tyler's extended evening hours, his unexpected business travels, and our growing emotional distance all suggested a third person's involvement. Yet hearing him mention her name so nonchalantly, as though I was the outsider in their relationship, ignited fury within me. "That works for me," I responded calmly, refusing to grant him the pleasure of witnessing my breakdown. "I'm Amelia, and before that call, I believed I'd wed a trustworthy man. Tyler and I had shared 6 years together, and despite our imperfect moments, I had faith in our union. We'd labored to purchase our home, a comfortable 2-bedroom city dwelling that captivated me instantly. It represented more than shelter. It symbolized everything we'd created as partners, or so I had believed. Reflecting now, warning signs had emerged. Small fractures in our foundation that I'd overlooked. Tyler's condescending behavior regarding financial matters. His habit of dismissing my worries with an appealing grin and quick peck. I'd always attributed his self-assurance to his competence, but now I understood it stemmed from his ability to control me. The remainder of that day felt surreal. I participated in client presentations, responding appropriately while my thoughts spiraled. Tyler believed he'd triumphed, imagining he could destabilize my world, dispose of the home I'd invested in, and escape without consequences. However, he remained unaware of one vital fact. The property title had been solely in my name for months. I'd arranged the transfer during our refinancing process earlier that year, a change Tyler had accepted without question because it reduced our interest rate. He'd never inquired about specifics or examined the documents he'd endorsed. His negligence would become his ruin. Upon returning to my hotel that evening, my initial shock had transformed into determination. I wouldn't weep or plead. Tyler desired conflict, excellent, but this battle would end with my victory. My first call went to Chloe, my attorney and close friend. I detailed the circumstances thoroughly, maintaining composure despite my racing heartbeat. "He sold your home," she repeated in disbelief. "Does he understand that's impossible without your authorization?" "Evidently not," I replied, detecting amusement in my voice. "He believes he's already allocated the proceeds toward his future with Nicole." Chloe chuckled grimly. "He'll receive quite a shock. The transaction is illegitimate. You can demonstrate exclusive ownership. If he's accepted any buyer's funds, he faces fraud allegations." The term fraud delivered a surge of satisfaction. "What's our next move?" I inquired. "Initially, we'll inform the purchaser that the sale lacks legal standing," Chloe explained. "Then we'll compose an official notice for Tyler detailing the ramifications of his behavior. Should he attempt anything further, we'll pursue court action." Ending the call, I experienced an unusual tranquility. Tyler assumed he'd outwitted me, leaving me helpless and desperate. In truth, he'd merely arranged his own ultimate embarrassment. I dedicated the remaining trip days to my professional responsibilities, compartmentalizing my feelings and directing my energy toward the upcoming challenge. The betrayal stung, but anticipating my life's reclamation and witnessing Tyler's arrogance dissolve provided me purpose I hadn't experienced in months. Boarding my homeward flight, I felt prepared, ready to confront Tyler, dismantle his deceptions, and begin a fresh chapter without him. This extended beyond winning. It concerned reclaiming authority. The return flight provided hours for contemplating how everything had deteriorated. Tyler's presumption was remarkable. He hadn't bothered concealing his treachery, treating me like another impediment to bulldoze toward his liberation. Rather than surrendering to rage, I concentrated on my return plans. Tyler perceived me as powerless, unaware I'd been strategically planning without realizing it. As the aircraft landed, I immediately contacted Chloe. "I'm home," I announced while retrieving my luggage. "What follows next?" "We've already contacted the buyer," she responded efficiently. They were astounded and quite displeased with Tyler. "They're cooperating, which strengthens our position." "And Tyler?" "Yes. I sent the formal letter this morning," she said. "It explains the sale's illegality, your sole ownership, and potential fraud consequences." He hasn't responded yet, but I suspect he'll be livid. Perfect, I thought. Let him suffer. Arriving home, the apartment felt strangely quiet. Tyler's possessions remained. His coats draped on chairs, shoes carelessly scattered near the entrance, but the atmosphere had shifted. I inhaled deeply and set down my suitcase, knowing confrontation would arrive shortly. Tyler burst in that evening, face flushed with anger, clutching his phone. "What's this nonsense?" he shouted, brandishing Chloe's letter. "You claim I can't sell our apartment. It's half mine." "No, Tyler," I replied calmly, folding my arms. "It isn't. The deed bears only my name, has for months. You cannot sell property you don't possess." He froze, displaying confusion and fury. "What do you mean?" I retrieved the deed from my prepared file, displaying it prominently. "Following our refinancing, I transferred the title to my name. You approved it, remember? Or did you merely skim the paperwork as usual?" Momentarily speechless, his expression contorted into a sneer. "You think you're clever, don't you? This changes nothing. I've already arranged a deal, and you'll appear foolish when everything collapses." I maintained steady eye contact. "The sale is already nullified, Tyler. The buyer understands this, and they're prepared for legal action if you don't repay the money. Additionally, regarding money," I stepped closer, lowering my voice, "if you've spent any deposit funds, you're in significantly more trouble." Tyler's confidence faltered momentarily. "You don't understand what you're discussing," he mumbled, avoiding my gaze. "I understand perfectly," I said steadily. "You've spent years treating me like I'm too naive to notice your actions. But surprise, Tyler, I've been observing, and now you'll face the repercussions." He began pacing, his frustration escalating. "This is absurd, you're overreacting. You can't simply evict me." I raised an eyebrow. "Actually, I can. This apartment legally belongs to me. You may remain temporarily, but only because I'm offering you courtesy time to arrange your next step. However, understand clearly, I'm not leaving." Over subsequent days, Tyler's anger transformed into desperation. He called repeatedly, leaving frantic messages alternating between pleading and threatening. Meanwhile, Chloe worked behind the scenes, securing every detail. The buyer withdrew their offer, furious at Tyler for wasting their time and money, while Chloe prepared preliminary divorce documentation. "You're in an excellent position, Amelia," she informed me during our meeting. "Tyler has no advantage here. Between the voided sale and pending fraud charges, he must cooperate to avoid greater complications." Her words provided relief but reminded me how much I'd allowed Tyler to dominate my life. For years, I'd ignored his dismissiveness and arrogance, convincing myself confrontation wasn't worthwhile. Now I recognized how much I'd sacrificed, and I was determined to reclaim everything. Laura, my best friend, visited one evening to help reorganize the apartment. We packed Tyler's belongings, carefully stacking boxes in the living room corner. "How's he handling this situation?" she asked, holding up one of his gaudy ties with a smirk. Poorly, I said, laughing despite everything. He still believes he can negotiate his way out, but I'm standing firm. Good, she said, tossing the tie into the box. He doesn't deserve any of your space or time. I nodded, feeling grateful for her support. For so long I'd felt isolated in my marriage, bearing emotional and financial burdens while Tyler claimed credit for everything. Now I had allies making all the difference. My plan's final element materialized the day Tyler brought Nicole to the apartment. I sat at the dining table reviewing documents when they entered as if they owned the place. Nicole surveyed the space with a smug smile, her arm linked with Tyler's. So this is our temporary residence, she said, her voice dripping with entitlement. I stood, heart pounding but resolve unwavering. No, I said firmly. This is where Tyler was staying. You, Nicole, won't be residing here at all. Her smile disappeared as she glanced at Tyler, who appeared equally shocked. What is this? He demanded. This, I said, gesturing around the apartment, is my home. Not yours, not hers, and certainly not accommodations for your affair after betraying me. Nicole's expression turned icy, but she remained silent. Tyler, however, looked ready to explode. You can't do this, he shouted. You're being unreasonable. I met his gaze unflinchingly. No, Tyler. What's unreasonable is believing you could sell my home, take the money, and expect me to simply accept it. You're fortunate I haven't filed criminal charges yet. Tyler stood in the doorway, face red with frustration, while Nicole crossed her arms, growing visibly uncomfortable. You're being ridiculous, Amelia, he said desperately. You can't just evict me from my own home. I stepped forward, voice calm but firm. This is my home, Tyler. The deed has been in my name for months, and you know it. You signed the paperwork without reading it, as always. So no, this isn't your home anymore. Nicole glanced at Tyler, her manicured hand tightening around her purse. Wait, what's she talking about? She asked sharply. You said this was your apartment, that you sold it. He flinched, attempting to dismiss her concerns. It's complicated. I'll handle it. Oh, it's not complicated, I said, stepping closer. You attempted to sell an apartment that isn't yours. That sale is invalid, Tyler, and currently, you have no standing whatsoever. Nicole's composure cracked. You mean the money you told me you had? She stopped mid-sentence, her voice rising. Oh my God, did you lie about that too? Nicole, let me explain. Tyler began quickly, raising his hands, but she wasn't listening. No, I interjected. Let me explain. Tyler tried selling the apartment behind my back, thinking he could pocket the money and leave me with nothing. What he didn't realize is that I transferred the deed to my name months ago. So not only did he fail to sell it, but he also committed fraud by pretending he could. Nicole's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Fraud, she whispered, stepping away from him. Are you serious? Yes, fraud, I said, crossing my arms. And I'm prepared to press charges if he doesn't collect his belongings and leave by day's end. Tyler's facade finally shattered. You can't do this, Amelia, he pleaded. We've been together 6 years. You can't just throw me out. You threw me out the moment you made that phone call, I said, my voice hardening. You told me you were divorcing me and laughed about me needing to find somewhere new to live. You didn't just betray me, Tyler. You tried to destroy me. So don't stand there acting like you're the victim. Nicole stepped back further, eyes darting between us. This is insane, she muttered, clutching her purse tighter. You didn't tell me any of this, Tyler. You said you had everything handled. He turned to her desperately. Nicole, I can fix this. I just need. She cut him off with a raised hand. Don't. Just don't. I'm not getting involved in your mess. Without another word, she turned and stormed out, leaving him standing there stunned. I couldn't help but smile as the door closed behind her. Looks like you're alone, I said, turning back to Tyler. Now let's discuss what happens next. He collapsed onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. Amelia, please. I made mistakes. I know that, but you don't have to do this. You're right, I said, grabbing a folder from the kitchen counter and placing it on the coffee table before him. I don't have to do this, but I will. This contains the divorce paperwork my lawyer has drafted. I suggest you sign quickly. The sooner you do, the sooner we can both move forward. He stared at the folder, face pale. You really despise me that much? Despise you? I laughed bitterly. No, Tyler. I don't despise you, I pity you. You had everything. Someone who loved you, a home we built together. And you destroyed it all because you couldn't see past your own ego. I stood, heart pounding but resolve unshaken. I want you gone by day's end. Take your belongings and figure out your next move. This is the last courtesy I'm extending. He opened his mouth to argue but stopped, shoulders slumping in defeat. Fine, he muttered. I'll leave. Good, I said, walking toward the door. And don't consider trying anything else. Chloe's handling everything, and next time you cross a line, I won't hesitate to let the courts handle it. As I opened the door, Tyler slowly stood, grabbing his coat. He didn't look at me as he left, his footsteps heavy with defeat. For a moment I felt a pang of sadness. Not for him, but for the life we could have had if he'd been the man I thought he was. But that moment passed quickly, replaced by relief. I closed the door behind him, locking it with the new key I'd made. This was my home now, and no one, especially not Tyler, would take it from me again. The silence following Tyler's departure was profound. For the first time in years I felt like I could truly breathe. The space no longer felt burdened by his presence, his entitlement, or his lies. It was just me, the home I'd built, and the quiet realization that I had won, not just against him, but against every doubt I'd ever had about defending myself. I stood in the living room center, taking in the emptiness where his belongings had been. His oversized gaming chair, the framed jerseys cluttering the walls, and the gaudy coffee table he'd insisted on keeping were all gone. The apartment looked cleaner, brighter, like it was mine again. Lauren came by that evening with takeout and wine. Is he really gone? She asked, settling dramatically on the couch. Gone and not returning, I said, pouring 2 glasses of wine. I gave him until day's end to pack his things. He didn't argue. Lauren raised her glass. To fresh starts and well-deserved victories. I clinked my glass against hers, feeling the past week's weight slowly lifting. To never letting someone walk over me again. Over the following days, I began reclaiming the apartment piece by piece. I rearranged furniture, moved my favorite artwork into the living room, and filled the space with things that brought me joy. It wasn't just redecorating, it was transforming the apartment into a reflection of who I was, not the person Tyler had tried to make me. Chloe called with legal updates. Her voice filled with confidence that made me feel invincible. The fraud charges are dropped since the buyer decided not to pursue them, she explained. But the divorce paperwork is progressing smoothly. Once Tyler signs, you'll be officially free. Hearing free made my chest tighten. It wasn't just about the divorce. It was about everything I'd carried for years. The resentment, self-doubt, and feeling trapped in a marriage that didn't value me. It was all finally being lifted. Tyler attempted contact several times. His messages ranging from half-hearted apologies to pathetic guilt trips. I made a mistake, one read. Can't we at least discuss this? Another was more desperate. You're going to ruin me, Amelia. Is that what you want? I didn't respond. For once, I wouldn't waste energy trying to fix something broken beyond repair. He'd made his choices and now faced the consequences. By week's end, the apartment felt completely renewed, warm, inviting, and entirely mine. As I sat on the couch with tea, city lights twinkling outside, I thought about everything that had happened. Tyler's betrayal had been shocking but also a wake-up call. For too long, I'd let myself believe I didn't deserve better, that I had to settle for whatever scraps of respect and love he decided to offer. But now I knew better. I wasn't just reclaiming my apartment. I was reclaiming my life. A month later, my life was completely transformed. The apartment was unrecognizable, not from any drastic renovation, but from how it felt. It was a space reflecting me, my tastes, personality, and newfound independence. The absence of Tyler's clutter and overbearing presence made the home feel lighter, freer. The divorce proceeded smoothly. Chloe had handled everything precisely, ensuring Tyler had no room to argue or complicate the process. He signed the papers without much resistance, likely realizing he had no leverage. There was no grand showdown, no emotional plea to reconcile. Just a cold, clean break that felt both bittersweet and deeply satisfying. One day, while sorting through old papers, I discovered a photo of Tyler and me from our early years. We were smiling, arms around each other, full of hope and promise. I stared at it momentarily, letting the memories flow. There had been good times, moments when I truly believed we were building a life together. But those moments were gone, overshadowed by years of neglect, manipulation, and betrayal. I tucked the photo into an envelope and stored it in a drawer. It wasn't worth displaying, but I wasn't ready to discard it either. It was part of my past, but it didn't define me anymore. Lauren and I celebrated the finalized divorce with dinner and drinks at a trendy rooftop bar downtown. "You're glowing," she said, raising her cocktail in a toast. "Single life suits you." I laughed, feeling warmth I hadn't experienced in years. "It's not the single life," I said. "It's the freedom. For the first time, I don't feel like I'm living under someone else's rules." We toasted to that, and as the night progressed, I felt growing pride in myself. I'd faced one of my life's hardest moments and emerged stronger. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. Back home, I started planning for the future. The apartment had become more than a refuge. It was a symbol of everything I'd reclaimed. But I knew I wouldn't stay there forever. Someday I'd move to a new place, one without any lingering shadows of my life with Tyler. Until then, I was determined to maximize every moment in the space I'd fought so hard to keep. As I curled up on the couch that night, peace washed over me. I thought about how Tyler had laughed during that phone call, so certain he'd won, and I couldn't help but smile. His arrogance had been his downfall, and my quiet strength had been my salvation. This wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where I made the decisions, one where I chose happiness on my own terms. And after a long time I felt truly free.